A religion that has to force people to put up a poster to prove its legitimacy is a dead religion. And it's not one that I want to be a part of. It's not one that I think I am a part of. My concern is instead of bringing a bill that will feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick, we're instead mandating that people put up a poster.
You just heard from a Democratic Texas state representative by the name of James Tallarico. Back in 2023, he was arguing against a state bill that would force public schools to display the 10 Commandments in the classroom. Again, public schools funded with public tax dollars, meaning it shouldn't endorse or promote any specific religion. But some religious folks in the United States want to force their religion onto everyone else. They don't believe in our Constitution. They don't believe in the separation of church and state. They don't believe in religious liberty or the liberty to not practice a religion. So that bill from 2 years ago luckily failed. But it seems Texas Republicans are taking another shot at it because, I'm sure there's nothing else they need to do in the state of Texas. I'm sure there are no other issues. Displaying the 10 Commandments is the most important thing they should be focusing on. According to the bill's author, State Senator Phil King, the 10 Commandments are part of our Texas and American story. I think our Constitution that calls for a separation of church and state is part of our American story, but I digress. They are ingrained into who we are as a people and as a nation. Today, our students cry out for the moral clarity, no, they don't, for the statement of right and wrong that they represent. Now, let me just note, there are people of all different faiths in this country who don't need to rely on the 10 Commandments in order to know the difference between right and wrong. But apparently, this is the supreme religion, and the supreme religion needs to be promoted by publicly funded institutions, according to this Texas state senator. If our students don't know the 10 Commandments, they will never understand the foundation for much of American history and law. John, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I understand how the lawmaker might have gotten mixed up. They thought that they were hearing students cry out for the moral clarity of the 10 Commandments. They were really crying out for the police to enter the building and take down the mass shooter. That's what they were shouting for. Unfortunately, they didn't get their wishes there. No, but it's like for Texas in particular to be saying this, like of all of the things that you think students desperately need, maybe to not be gunned down on a recurring basis. I think they'd probably prefer that. Maybe a little bit more funding. I have a lot of family in Texas schools. Schools are getting shut down all over the place.
Yep.
A really good school, by the way, where one of them works. The library has been shut down. And the reason given is they do enough reading in class. We don't need to have a library. And I'm sure they're just worried that they're gonna get in trouble because some wacko Christian is gonna see something in a book and is gonna try to sue the school. But again, it's all fixed if they have the 10 Commandments, because without that, the kids wouldn't know that you're not supposed to kill or steal or, covet your neighbor's wife. They could just follow the example of Donald Trump and they'll learn all of those moral lessons. Look, this is not about solving problems, obviously. This is just wanting Christianity to have a position of supremacy. They want Christians to feel, they see the thing and they're like, yes, my religion's in charge. And they want everyone who doesn't follow that religion to feel inferior, to feel like a second-class citizen. That's 100% what it's about.
And look, this type of action, if it comes to pass, is an erosion of religious liberty. And I think religious liberty is so important in this country. And what do I mean by that? When you treat one religion as though it's supreme, and you force it into public institutions, well, that kind of erodes the religious liberty of Jews, of Muslims, of whatever, of atheists, agnostics, whatever. What makes this country great is the freedom to practice any religion you want or not practice a religion at all. And again, when it comes to our public schools, can we not use them for culture war battles? Can we not use our kids as pawns in your identity politics or your culture war issue? They need to learn how to read. They need to learn how to do math. They need to learn science. And you know what? How about we spend a little more time investing in music programs, theater, electives that can help them figure out what their interests and passions are. Art classes, stuff like that. Maybe even bring back home ec and talk about personal finance. Things that would actually improve the lives of these students without promoting a specific religion. But no, we can't have that. Now, the display of the 10 Commandments actually was a thing that ended in 1980 after the Supreme Court struck down a similar law in Kentucky as unconstitutional, because it is. This is not a separation of church and state. If you have the 10 Commandments displayed in public schools, you're promoting a specific religion. According to Stone v. Graham, there was no secular purpose in posting the 10 Commandments in classrooms. But that's not all Texas is trying to do. According to NBC News, another bill was filed to allow school districts to adopt policies allowing for periods of prayer. And look, it depends on how that's carried out. So if you want to make space for religious students to be able to practice prayer on their own because it's part of their religion, you should make those accommodations. But if you're forcing prayer, if you have a prayer period that everyone has to participate in, that is an issue, right? So it would involve the reading of scripture or other religious texts with parental consent. Our schools are not God-free zones, the bill's author, Senator Mays Middleton, said in a statement. We now have 2 Texas state lawmakers who are proposing 2 separate bills that violate the separation of church and state. It's amazing. While also thanking President Donald Trump and Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick for making prayer in public schools a top priority. That is one of the most depressing statements I've heard. Like, at a time when you have a huge percentage of public school kids unable to read, we're talking about this being the top priority. Okay. Patrick has said that among his primary concerns for the current session will be ensuring the legislation's success. He also applauded Louisiana, which last year became the first state to require the 10 Commandments to be displayed in all public schools and college classrooms. Several states, including Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, have tried to force religion in public schools. Let's take a look at that.
It's to understand American exceptionalism, what made America great.
I did to announce that
Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters says schools need to go further. He has ordered all schools to incorporate the Bible and 10 Commandments into curriculum for grades 5 through 12. And now he says he's purchased 500 Bibles. The elected Republican's ultimate goal? Put one in every Oklahoma classroom.
You're saying you're not forcing Christianity on people, but I think some people might see it as that. So what would you say to allay those concerns?
Look, what I would say is you can be offended by Christianity, you cannot agree with Christianity, but that doesn't give you the right to take Christianity out of American history. And that's what we've seen the left do. We have been very specific. The Bible is there for its historical context. It is not there to say that you should be a Christian or you should follow Christianity.
Are we also talking about having a Bible in a math class, like in a chemistry class? Like, is that the goal, to have it in those kinds of classrooms as well?
Yes, when applicable.
Okay, we're gonna have Bibles in math class.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it doesn't matter which party is in charge. There's always gonna be like this unbearable, annoying culture war battle, religious battle, and it's just so frustrating. I don't get why people have to force their beliefs onto others. It's so incredibly lame, and honestly, it comes across as a group of individuals who are so insecure about their own religion that they have to force everyone else to validate it. If you believe in your faith, that is a deeply personal thing. And the fact that these people are trying to force it in public schools in order to indoctrinate kids is pretty sick. And I would be livid if I were a parent in one of these and had a kid going to one of these schools. But this is spreading all across the country. It's, there's a bill proposed in Kentucky that would allow public schools to post the 10 Commandments, but it wouldn't make it a requirement. A bill in Ohio that would require schools to select from a list of 9 historical documents to display in a classroom. The 10 Commandments would be one of them. It goes on and on. So any last words on this, John?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it says a lot, considering that, as you pointed out, it's already been adjudicated. The Supreme Court said you can't do this. Them doing it says they accurately read the SCOTUS as a place where the prior precedent has no meaning. They view it as an activist Supreme Court, and that's what they're hoping to get. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to succeed, but they think they have a good shot because the Supreme Court doesn't matter, it doesn't care what has come before. If some of them are true believers, you take a look in that guy's blank, vacant eyes, it's entirely possible he just actually believes all of this. For most of them, though, it's just a tool. I mean, look, we know this is how the Republicans work. They have an agenda, an actual agenda of tax cuts, deregulation, but you can't win a national election on that stuff. It's not popular enough because it doesn't benefit most people. And so what do they have in terms of their forward-facing policy? It's identity politics and culture war. That's all they have. It's DEI from top to bottom. It's LGBTQ stuff from morning to night. That's what they have to run on. Demonizing different groups and taking every little group of Americans and pointing at another one and saying they're the ones that are ruining your lives. And then you get them to all fight and squabble, a big royal rumble of different disaffected American groups. And meanwhile, the rich are making out like the bandits that they are.
100%. Oh my God, speak on it. Absolutely. That's absolutely right. And that's what's so frustrating about all of this. I have no malice in my heart toward Christians at all. Okay, I was raised Christian. I moved away from religion, but I have respect for people of faith. And I think they should have the right to practice their faith. But I would like that respect to be reciprocated. And that means not forcing your beliefs onto me, not allowing your religious doctrine to dictate policies or legislation. But unfortunately, we don't live in that world. And culture wars will continue to reign supreme in a political system in which incredibly wealthy corporate donors are free to bribe our politicians to do the austerity, the tax cuts, and all the economic policies that have been so harmful. And yeah, you're right, John. What else are they going to run on? They can't run on those topics or those issues. So they're going to run on culture war issues that they know will divide Americans. And Americans on these issues are divided. We're constantly fighting each other on these issues.